This is the Bears Barroom Radio Network. The following program is recorded live and intended for all audiences.
Radio is scripted now. We just come up with it. We don't use computers. We don't rehearse. We're going to talk about this next. We're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about the Bulls. And then we're going to have Brad Bixon. And then we're going to have all this. No. If you don't know what you're going to talk about in the top of your head before a show, you shouldn't be in the business. I don't know what you got. I feel like Vince Vaughn in a couple's retreat. The Sharks are circling. Old school, baby!
You're listening to the Mike North Advantage, and it begins right now.
That's right. The Mike North Advantage starts right now. I am Aldo Gandia, Mike's wingman, and boy, oh boy, Mike has done it again. But this time, he's done it twice. That's right. He not only has one great guest, he has two great guests. Let me introduce Mike so he can introduce our first guest. Mike North, how are you, my friend?
I'm great, Aldo, and I hope everybody at Bears Barroom is doing good. You know, we're going to do a little baseball for the first half hour, 35, 40 minutes, then we're going to hit on the Bears, of course, with you and me. Want everybody to check into the chat room. Aldo will have questions from the chat room for our first guest and for the guests that will follow him, who I know my first guest knows from the past 15, 20, 25 years. Jesse Rogers from ESPN 1000 will break down the Cubs, but I said, who can I get to break down the White Sox and a very good performance of late and talk about where this club may be headed in this different situation than my next guest. He's a Hall of Famer. He's been with us before. We don't do a lot of repeat guests, and thus the repeat guests are really good. He's always been good. He's always been ready. He's always been there for me, and in the past, whether I was working with Dan Jiggets or Doug Buffone or others, and here at the Bear Barroom, it's my buddy, my friend, Hawk Harrelson. How are you, Hawk?
All right, big guy. What are we going to argue about today?
Nothing. We don't have nothing to argue about today because we have a 13-11 ball club. I guess the thing I want to ask you first, Hawk, as a baseball player, when you were playing, you guys would play with the flu and a lot of different things. This is a whole different deal, I understand. But let's talk about the scheduling. You know the division better than anybody. You know the Central Division of the National League. And you were in that division with the White Sox, and you saw you didn't have to play teams like the Yankees, Tampa Bay, other teams that are on the come. How comfortable would you be with this division, even though you have Minnesota, you have Cleveland, and the other National League Central, you have the Cubs?
You know, Mikey, I was brought up, and we all were brought up back in my era, too. It didn't make any difference who you were playing, because if you're playing good, you're going to win. If you're playing bad, you're going to lose. So we went out there every day just trying to bust our ass and, you know, and play and have some fun, you know, like the Sox are doing right now. And Tim Anderson has become, as you heard me before in my last year before I retired, he's become the leader of that ball club. I mean, he is infectious, he's contagious, and his energy is something. He plays hard, and he has fun doing it. So that's the kind of guy that I love to watch play, and that's the kind of guy that we had a lot of people like that in my time zone. So it was just something. The last thing that we used to say, the two things that we used to say before every game, we'd be on the top step of the dugout, ready to go out and take the field, and we'd look at each other and we'd say, all right, let's get that bullpen in a hurry. Let's get in your bullpen in a hurry. And, of course, you know, today you don't want to do that. The bullpens are just too dadgum good. Back in my era, the bullpens weren't that good. You might have one guy out there who was, you know, really outstanding. But the rest of them, you know, they were just like meat, so to speak, and the way we thought. And then the second thing we used to say, if we get beat, let's get beat in a hurry. Because we wanted to play a game that's fast. You play better when you play fast. And we would, a lot of times, you know, we'd have under 2-hour games. Not a lot of times, but some of the times. And then if we went over 2.5 hours, we were all upset. because you got to have fun to win at the major league level. And if you'll notice now, with the influx of the Latin players, and it's just growing and growing, these guys are better players than we were. I mean, you know, you're watching the same thing, and you and I have been watching the same thing for a long time together. And these guys, look at the Sox, what we've got. We've got some of the best young players in the game of baseball. And in our club, it's going to be very, very dangerous, you know, for 6, 7, 8 years.
I got to ask you about the pitching. We have Dallas Keuchel. Thought it was great pickup, outstanding pickup. Leadership, already stepped out, said I don't need baseball teams that I pitch for to be flat, not being ready to play. I think that's a leadership thing. Tim Anderson, outstanding. Hopefully he improves with the glove, because he is one of the best hitters in Major League Baseball, especially that nobody knows about. And I guess you got to say that at 13 and 11, when they were projected by most so-called experts to win 32 games, they're weathering the storm. They've had a couple of tough series. They got to prove that they can beat Minnesota and Cleveland on a consistent basis. But, I mean, overall, and, you know, me and you've been talking for years, and, yeah, you brought up at the beginning, what are we going to argue about today? Well, there was things worth arguing about back then. But now, baseball's an argumentative sport, a debatable sport, but I really don't have, and this is going to shock you, a lot to complain about right now with this ball club.
Oh, come on. You know, you can go to help a lion like you can for stealing.
I'm not lying. I am not lying. I don't think we're as good as Minnesota or Cleveland, but I think if we can get another starting pitcher to step up with Giolito, okay, and with Keuchel, and I know that Hahn's not going to rent anybody, so he says, but if we're still in the hunt at the end, and if one of these young pitchers can step up a little bit with the bullpen we have, I think we got a shot. I really do, and I predicted them for third, but I'm seeing a maturation from this team that people were banking on.
You know, you don't have to be the best team to win, and to win it all. I remember in 1967 when I was playing for the Red Sox, you had the Red Sox, the White Sox, the Twins, and the Tigers all within one game of each other. They call it the greatest pennant race in the history of the game. Mm-hmm. And we were not the best team. Minnesota had the best team. The Tigers were next. We were third, and the White Sox, they had the best pitching, but they couldn't score.
Right.
So it always, in baseball, that's why it's such a beautiful game, because nobody knows the game of baseball. You know, I get a kick out of it when people come up and say, oh, you know, you're an expert, you've been around a long time. There are no experts in this game. If that's the beauty of the game, you know, you're going to see things that happen that you've never seen before, and you're going to see them not on a consistent basis, but you're going to see a lot throughout the course of the season, things that you've never seen before in a game. And, you know, I've been in this game all the parts of 8 decades, and I'm still seeing things that I haven't seen before. The only thing I look at is the depth of the bullpen, because right now, when I was playing and we were playing, the starters were everything. And today, you're just not going to get, you know, 4 guys to go out there. And the closest team to doing that is probably Cleveland. They have got the best pitching among the 3 clubs, among Minnesota, us, and Cleveland. They've got the best pitching. But the biggest thing to me is who's going to play. The reason we won in 67 because we caught the ball. Yastrzemski was in left, Reggie Smith was in center, I was in right, and nothing hit the ground out there. You know, you've heard me say that many times. My first 2 rules in baseball, if you're going to win at the major league level, first of all, catch the ball. You can't give the other team 30 outs, 31 outs when you're getting 27. Mm-hmm. The next rule was don't mess with Joe West, you know, and
don't mess with Joe West. You know what? You're right. Pitching and defense is still in vogue, Hawk. And I do know this. You know me. I used to be a first guesser. I wouldn't wait till somebody played games before I decide whether a pickup was good or bad. So last year, when they picked up Grandel, this is all I said. I'm not asking you what your philosophy is or anything. But I said $77 million is a lot to pay for a guy who's never hit over 250. I understand he hits homers, but We could use that money, just like the Cubs did, to get starting pitching once the rebuild was over. And I just thought at the time, with McCann as an up-and-comer, and he's going to be an unrestricted free agent, but I even told Jerry Reinsdorf this when I talked to him on the phone to see what he was doing a couple weeks ago. I would have loved to seen a 2-year extension to McCann with Zach Collins in the background. Now, I don't expect you to question it, but if you were a general manager of a baseball team and you had an all-star catcher and you had another guy behind him, and I know catching depth is important, but you had to address other positions, would you make a move somewhat similar to the one that was made?
I have so much trust in Kenny and Rick and Rick Renteria. Those guys, they have put together. You know, you mentioned Tim Anderson. He's an MVP just waiting to happen. You know that.
Right.
He is. He might win a couple of those MVPs before he's done.
He might, but we're talking about Hawk. We're talking about Grandel as the situation warrants it. Not taking anything away from him.
I can't speak on Grandel because I really hadn't seen him play that much. I just know that if you're going to spend that kind of money for a catcher like that, then he's got to be good. Now, the first thing I did, and the first thing I've done in my career, I have a lot of friends who are scouts. Mm-hmm. And I remember when we first got Eloy Jimenez, I called because I'd never seen him, you know. I called not a lot, but a few of my friends who I trust who are scouts, and they told me, Hawk, this guy is the real deal. I mean, he's going to hit 50, 60 home runs one year.
Right.
And the only thing I worry about him is, his defense a little bit. But he can get better at that. But with Grandal, as I said, I really can't comment on that because I haven't seen him play. Now, if you ask me about somebody it was in our league, so to speak, all these times, then I could have an opinion. But it's a wait and see on Grandal. And so far, as I said, I'm sure he is the guys that I talked to said he's really good. Said he is really good. He's really good behind the plate, and he is dangerous at the plate. So that's good enough for me.
All right, let me ask you this. He said that he's upset with the team because there's no in-game videotape that he can study. In other words, and I heard Ozzie say, man, I don't want to hear that because what it turns into is you got guys running back and forth from between the dugout and the clubhouse, back and forth, where you don't have no cohesiveness on the bench, like the White Sox do now, and it turns into a turnstile thing where guys just want to watch themselves on video, and they really get away from the game. Do you think that's an excuse? Because you didn't. How much video did you look at? How much video did Yaz look at? How much video did Ted Williams look at? How much video? There was no video when Babe Ruth played. So, do you buy that?
No, I don't. But that's the way it is today. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. This analytics and everything else, I think that is way overboard. If you notice, when you watch the highlights, first of all, the only time we ever left the dugout if we weren't hitting was to go down to the runway and have a quick cigarette,
I get it. I love it.
And then, but the managers wanted everybody on that bench watching the game because baseball, as I said, is a beautiful game. It's a pitch. One missed call by an umpire, one error by somebody on your team or their team can change the whole course of that ball game. So we had to sit there and watch. And then, especially like with Dick Williams and Alvin Dark, what they would do is they would go before the game started, and for the guys who were not in the lineup, and he would give them an assignment. See if you can pick up a tip or a tell, so to speak, on a pitcher. And he would tell them, look and see, hey, okay, Mike, you look at that third base coach and see if you can pick up any sign.
Sure.
That's what. But he wanted to keep them in the game. The guys who are playing, they're in the game, so that's okay. But the guys who are not, rather than sit there and try to grab a quick nap or whatever, which happens a lot, that was just not allowed. And it's a different game today than when I played. There's no question because if you notice, I keep saying, you got to have fun. If you notice the highlights of games, the most laughter, so to speak, are done by Latins. They have a fun time more than our guys. Our guys come up in high school and college and everything else, and they're already getting into the, mechanics and analytics, swing angles, and all that stuff. And these Latins, they see ball, hit ball. That's their theory, and they want to have fun. And I used to love to watch, Adrian Beltre and Miguel Cabrera, because they could laugh at themselves. They could have fun. And we had a lot of guys like that. Norm Cash was a heck of a player for the Tigers, and we had, every team had some guys.
Look at Mark Vidrich. And then you got there's some guys like that are American-born players like Rizzo. He has fun, and other guys. But you know what? The Cuban ball players, and I know guys that have been over there 8-9 times with amateur baseball. The Cuban system is as good, if not better, than our system. And if you see how many people they produce as professional and amateur baseball players compared to our country that end up going to the next level, I mean, it is very staggering. They hold them accountable.
Our White Sox have most of the Cubans.
So, of course. We got the whole island.
I love Cuban players. They were some of my greatest teammates. They had fun playing. They played their ass off, too. I mean, they were smart. And we just had a lot of fun, being around. There was a camaraderie there. We had fun. We could laugh at each other. Sometimes we might sit after a night, a bad ball game that we lost. We might sit around at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning in that clubhouse, telling each other how horseshit we were. He's
on his game today, folks. He's Hawk. And now we got our guy Aldo Gandia, who comes on to ask a couple questions, and also we got a couple chat room questions before we spring Hawk, and then we get to Jesse Rogers, an old friend of Hawk's, who will do from ESPN 1000 and ESPN, who will give us the Cubs. Aldo?
Let me start with State.
Well, first of all, you be a big hug and kiss for me, and you tell Jesse hello for me. Give him
but don't go away now, because we got some questions for you, but I appreciate that, Hawk. Thank you.
We got
and you and Iris as well.
We got 3 questions from the chat room, Hawk, and let me start with Stacy's question. She wants to know what your thoughts are on Zach Birdy, the #1 draft pick for the Chicago White Sox. I believe it was in 2016. He was called up about 3 weeks ago. He's had 5 appearances out of the bullpen, 5 innings pitched, a couple of earned runs. She wants you to share your take on the young pitcher.
He's got a chance, I'll tell you that. He's I'm glad he's with a White Sox uniform on, because he's got a chance to be a good one.
Yeah, we love those local kids. He's from Downers Grove South High School, and so we love it when the local kids do well in a Chicago baseball uniform. Harp 4803 has a question for you. He wants to know if you keep in touch with Wimpy, Tom Paciorek.
I texted him yesterday, and he hadn't texted me back yet. Wimpy, I love Wimpy. He is... we had 10 years together in the booth, and in the 10 years, we only had one argument, and that was about Michael Jordan. It wasn't anything. But I love Wimpy, and he was getting on me one day because Michael and I had just played golf for a couple of days prior to that and had a great time and everything. And I was talking a little too much about Michael and Wimpy after the game was over. He said something that really pissed me off, and that's the only time we ever got angry at one another in 10 years, and that's very unusual.
That is unusual. I have 10 arguments a day with my wife, but that's a different story. Q from Cincy wants to know, what's your opinion about a player swinging on a 3-0 count when the team is up by 10 runs?
I don't like it. If I was on the opposing team, next time he came to the plate, I'd drill him. There's no. Again, the game has changed today. That never happened in my time zone. That would never happen. You wouldn't be stealing a base when you were leading by 6 or 7 runs in the 8th inning. I mean, that was the code.
Right.
And I'll give you a good example. We were playing Oakland, and I was, we were playing at Fenway Park, and I had played ball with that club in Kansas City before they went to Oakland, so they had a pitcher named Chuck Dobson, who was about 6'6", threw hard, and had a great curveball. So we got a game with them, and we're down by a run, and there's a couple guys on, and I come to the plate, And I know what he's going to do. If he gets me 2 strikes, he's going to throw that hook. So he got me to 1 and 2, I believe it was, and I'm sitting on that curveball, and he threw it, and he got it in a pretty good spot. And I went out and got it and hooked it over everything, over the green monster, and we win the ball game. So now after the game, we'll go to this place called Lucifer's, which was right across the street at Kenmore Square, and that's where everybody went after the game, both teams. And we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, Dauber comes over, and he says, Hawk, and he was a good friend of mine. He says, I can't allow that to happen. I said, I know that, Chuck. He said, that was a good curveball. He said, now, if I'd have hung it, no problem. But that was a good pitch, a good curveball, and a good location, and you beat me on it. And I said, Chuck, look, do what you got to do. So don't you know we go out and play them again in Oakland not too long after that. First time I come to the plate, he hit me right in the ribs with a fastball. and I just dropped my bat, and I went to first. I didn't say a word. Mm-hmm. Dropped my bat and went to first base because that was the way the game was played. Now, if he had hung it, he would have never said a word, and they would have, But you can't. There used to be a saying, I can't let you take food off my table, mm-hmm. and that's what I was doing when I hit his best pitch out of the ballpark to beat him. Yeah. But there were codes that were now non-existent. They're not. The game has changed, as I said. I know I see a lot of things as you guys do about former players saying the game is they don't like it and everything else. I love the game. I love the game today probably more than I ever have, only because of the talent. That's what I look at. I look at the talent. That's why our White Sox, I just can't wait to watch them play because, you get Lewis Robertson out there. And there's going to be a time when Tim Anderson is going to be sitting out. There's going to be a time where we might be fielding 9 Latin players, including the pitcher, and the catcher. So you would never see that, 50 years ago. But that's the way the game has evolved. And as I said, I love watching it because I love to see play guys who have fun on the baseball field. You don't see very many of our guys, our Americans, laughing on the field.
Yeah,
that's just not the way they're brought up.
Right.
You see all the fun and laughter and everything coming from the Latins.
Well, and last question, it's from me, and it's really capturing the spirit of everyone in the chat room. Everyone loves the broadcast crew calling the game now, but we all miss you so much, Hawk. We really, really miss your play-by-play, your presence in our living room every day for a Sox game. How much do you miss broadcasting baseball games, and how excited are you about this 2020 edition of the White Sox?
I can tell you this, and from my perspective, retirement's overrated. There's no question about it.
Yes, it is.
And I really love listening to Jason and Stoney. They do a good job,
yes.
Outstanding job, as a matter of fact, in my opinion. But I enjoy it because Steve comes up with, the nuances, a lot of nuances in the game. And Jason is really, he's good now, but he's going to be a great announcer. He's going to be one of the best. And I told him before I left, we had some talks, and I told him, I said, look, Jason, I said, now you're going to, excuse me, I said, you're going to have some criticism that's unwarranted because you're in a 2-team city. And, Kurt Gowdy and Howard Cosell gave me the greatest tip I ever had about announcing. And I've been announcing maybe, a month or two, and Kurt Gowdy calls me up. This was in 75, my first year announcing with the Red Sox. And he said, I'm coming to the ballpark. I want to talk to you. And I said, okay. So he came to the ballpark, and we were talking. He said, look, I'm going to give you the best piece of advice you'll ever get about announcing. Don't try to please everybody because you can't. You cannot please everybody, so don't try. Don't try to do something that you can't do. So now, a couple of weeks later, the coach, Howard Cosell, calls me up. He said, I'm coming to Fenway. I want to talk to you. I said, okay. So he sits down, and I think he's sitting really in the same chair that Kurt was sitting in. And he said, I'm going to give you the best piece of advice about announcing. He said, you got a chance to be a good one, but don't try to please everybody because you can't. And, Howard was voted by Reader's Digest for year after year after year as being the most loved announcer in sports and the most hated announcer in sports.
Right.
So he didn't try to please anybody. He said those guys that try to please everybody, especially if you're working in a two-team city like Chicago, like New York, and even like Boston, because that's almost, with proximity to New York, that's almost like a two-team city there. And I told Jason, I said, now you got to have a thick skin, because you're going to get some people calling up, and they're going to be ripping you. They're going to be Cub fans going under the guise of White Sox fans, and then vice versa as far as the Cub announcers. The Cub announcers do a heck of a job, too. I enjoy listening to them. But and Mike just mentioned Rizzo. I'm a big fan of Rizzo. I love to watch him play. He plays his ass off, and he does have fun out there. So it's I love Jason, and I love listening to he and Stoney. And as I said, I told Jason, you're a very lucky young man, because you're coming into the time now that this ball club is going to be good for a long time. And I think Chicago baseball fans are going to have a good time for the next 6-8 years, because both teams are good. I think the White Sox are better. I don't think there's any question about that. But the Cubs have a little stronger pitching than we have. And but on the field, I don't think that Minnesota, close. Cleveland, not close, as far as having the talent that the White Sox put out on that field every day. And we got the right man at the right place at the right time, and that's Rick Renteria, because those players love him, and they play hard for him. You watch.
All right, I got to stop you. Put the pom-poms down. Enough. Put the pom-poms down. Enough. You were going good. Now enough. Let's just get past the season, all right? Enough. Hawk, I love you, buddy. We got to run.
I wish you could see which finger I got up right for you right now.
Hey, buddy. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
Oh, the best.
Okay.
Thank you, Hawk.
Take care, Hawk.
Aldo, all right.
Okay, bye-bye. Jesus Christ.
That was
Holy, you asked him the question about Jason. We got over to Eloy. I love the guy. He was so good today. So good, but I had to stop him. Enough.
That was
didn't we let him go? I let him go for 5 minutes. You know what I mean? On that one deal. He's hilarious. What a guy. He broke it down good, Aldo.
He really did.
He broke it down good. But I couldn't do it no more.
But I knew,
the best, right?
I knew you were going to cut him off when he brought up Rick's name, Renteria's name. I just knew, and I said, "Oh, here it comes."
No, but I mean, we're going over the whole roster. You asked him about Jason and Stoney.
But you
the next thing I know, we're here. The food in the clubhouse is the best in the world. The ballpark is as pretty as enough.
But I
got to stop Hawk, because he's very passionate about the White Sox. But you know what I'm going to say? He's been passionate for the White Sox a lot every year.
Oh, my God.
And I just want to see us cash in. That's all I want to do.
Well, in some of broadcasting's best moments is when he was covering a White Sox team that just stunk to holy hell. And he would not say a word for minutes and minutes, and you just know he was seething, and he was just stopping himself.
I used to go at it with him, about that. Say, tell us what you're really thinking. Well, you know what I'm thinking. But I would say not everybody knows that. And what he just broke down, the first 20 minutes was as good as you can break down the White Sox. That's what I always wanted to hear from Hawk. And for the most part, we heard from him. The guy's a Hall of Famer.
Oh.
I mean, period, end of story. He unfortunately didn't get the chance to go in this year because of the COVID situation, but he'll be back hopefully next year. So we got Jesse Rogers coming on, and then me and you are going to talk some Bears. So you could, I'll kill some time.
All right, we're calling Jesse. We're calling Jesse right now. He should pick up in about 10. There he is.
Leave a message and I'll call. Thanks.
He left us on the voicemail.
Please record your message.
Oh, he's not there?
No, I'll ring him up again. Let me leave him a message first. Hold on a second. Hello, Mr. Jesse Rogers. My name is Aldo Gandia. I am the producer of the Mike North Advantage, and we desperately need you on the show. Actually, we don't desperately need you. Mike and I can talk for the next hour, but if you can join us, that'd be great. Thanks. I'll call you back.
Great. That's going to encourage him. No, he'll be on with us. I'm going to text him.
Yeah, text him.
And we'll get him on. He knows better. He's a producer.
Yeah,
You know?
But
he knows better. He's supposed to be there. Let me call him real quick here. We'll do some on-air stuff, while we're doing this. And I'll say, where the hell are you? He's probably waiting for my phone call,
Yeah.
Okay, one more time.
It's just going straight to his voicemail.
Hello.
There he is, Jesse
Why don't you turn on your
Rogers!
phone?
Let's do it.
Yeah, you're a producer, and you're not picking up the phone. I'm the best producer in sports radio history, and we can't get a hold of him when he's told he's going to be
How
called.
come you call? When you call, I pick up. Aldo doesn't know who he's calling.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
There's a lot I don't know.
Anyway, Jesse, we just hit. Thanks for that is a moment in our podcasting Bears Barroom history.
That's right.
Got to ask. We just had Hawk Harrelson on. Broke down the White Sox, positive, all positive, except for a couple things like the Gandia signing and a few other things. I know this. I felt high about the Chicago Cubs this year. Not as high about the White Sox. I would probably say you were more careful on predicting what was going to happen. So where are you at with this team? Are you surprised or not about what they've done so far?
No, I'm definitely surprised. I did not think they could have lasting power. I didn't think they had the depth, Mike. And in fact, they are showing their depth is better than their star players right now. Ian Happ is off to a great start. Jason Hayward's off to a great start. Alec Mills, who the hell's Alec Mills? Off to a great start.
Right.
So those guys, I thought that would be the problem. The 6, 7, 8, 9 hitters and the 4 or 5 pitchers. And other than Chatwood's bad outing, I think he has that back injury. Chatwood's been good too. Like, that has shocked me, to be honest. And I will say that David Ross was not given an experienced bullpen, and he's doing the best he can with it. I mean, nobody in baseball knows these guys' names, like Casey Sadler and some of these other guys. He's making the most of it, and that is, again, also with Craig Kimbrell and his problems. So I can't say enough about the Cubs right now, and it is surprising to me. I didn't think they could be this good.
Yeah, nice that they picked themselves off the mat. It was a huge win, the second game of that doubleheader. I brought up today, I think the best move Ross has made all year, and on Twitter I brought it up. I don't know if you saw it or not. I think telling Ian Happ that you're my starter. That's it, no matter what happens. Now, somebody said, well, he was going good at the time. That's not the point. There were players that were going good the past 2-3 years that thought they'd play more on a daily basis. I don't have to go into them, and then you wouldn't see him for 3 days. I believe he's been, and I heard you say that he's been their best offensive player. Was giving him the job early and sticking with him a big positive in your opinion, too?
Without a doubt, because I'll tell you, Ross has gone out of his way to say these things. He's not doing it for my benefit, the reporters that are on that Zoom call. He's doing it so Happ hears it. So there's no doubt what Ross has said has had an effect on Happ. Now, the other side of that, of course, is Almora's not getting playing time, but he didn't earn it. And Ross, I'm sure, privately has said to Almora, hey, Happ is my starter. You're my backup. That's the way it goes. I mean, that's what a manager has to do.
He's not hitting.
So there's no... Yeah, right. And he hasn't hit for a year or two, And
right.
Happ went down to the minor leagues and he fixed what was wrong with him. I didn't know that he could fix that hole in his swing, but he has so far. He's the best hitter in baseball when he gets ahead in the count. So just think about that. If he's behind in the count, he's screwed. But nowadays, that was last year, the year before. Nowadays, he's not swinging at that high pitch. He's getting ahead of the count. His OPS is over 2,000 when he's ahead in the count, Ian Happ. How do you not play that every day? So, yes, I think it goes hand in hand. He proved himself a little bit last year, and then Ross said and did things to back him up, give him confidence, and it's worked.
You know what, Jess, I got to tell you, you're on top of it as usual because you brought up a good point. Pittsburgh's got a guy named Bell. Now, you know me, I go around the league because I bet around the league, and I bet the Cleveland-Pittsburgh game last night. And they said Bell struck out on a ball right down the middle. And he said, and whoever the announcer was, I don't know who it was, their good announcing team, he says, look, if you're going to be successful and be a superstar in this league, you can't miss the pitches that are down the middle. Even if you're a power hitter, that's your bread and butter. Now, the next time up, he didn't miss it. He hit a double, tied the game up. They ended up losing 6-3. But I think that's what Happ is doing. When you say he gets a hold ahead of the count, he's not afraid to take that next swing at a ball that's in the strike zone. He's been very, very good at his selection process.
Yeah, in fact, that's a criticism I'd have of Schwarber. Like, he doesn't always hit or swing at the pitch that he should.
But he's not swinging for average. Do you think that I think Happ's swinging to keep his job, to keep building, and I think he's swinging for average. I don't think Schwarber's that same type of hitter, do you?
No, he's not. He's not. But that's my point. When Schwarber gets one, he needs to drive. He needs to hit it, Mm-hmm. Now, Happ, you're right. He's spraying the field. He's a switch hitter. It's a different hitter. And, of course, if you do the right things, Happ can still hit a home run. You see him go opposite field as a lefty. No, you're right. And that's why getting into what happens when you get ahead in the count? The pitcher has to throw you a strike. If you're going to swing at bad pitches, he doesn't have to throw you a strike. So it's all working for Happ right now. And a guy like Schwarber could probably learn a little bit from him. Not that I like Schwarber's power, but I think if you're going to hit 230, then you better max out on your power, and that's what Schwarber is right now, a 230 guy who could hit 40 home runs, but he's got to connect on those pitches that he has to, the mistake pitches. Anyway, Happ's been great, and I think he should stay at leadoff when Bryant comes back. Don't you think so, Mike?
Oh, absolutely. And now Bryant's getting an injection in his wrist, and the nonsense that's going on with him. It just gets, and I know he plays a lot of games each year. But this year
it's piling up. It's piling up. It is.
Yeah. I'm not trying to be a negative guy about this, but come on, man. You want $200,000, you want $300,000, you ain't going to see that from me. That would be my deal. I got to ask you about Hugh Darvish because, in the old days before Twitter, that's right, folks, we were big before Twitter, okay? It would be easy for me to explain things. So when a guy on Twitter, on social media, which I love, as you know, and you can check out Jesse on Twitter too. What's that handle, Jess?
Jesse Rogers, ESPN, at Jesse Rogers, ESPN.
I was very critical of Hugh Darvish for the last 3-4 years, as 99% of anybody that knows anything about baseball was. So I get a Cub fan, or so he calls, and really, Cub fans are always easy to argue with because they wear their hearts in their sleeves, or they'll remember what you said. Hugh Darvish, he goes, you're not going to badmouth him now. I don't have the patience with dopes to type something out and actually do work. I picked them to win the division this year. I picked them to get the over 32. You know what I mean?
Nice.
I picked them.
Yeah,
and you know the reason I picked them? Because of Hugh Darvish. Because I felt that he was going to have a good year. But don't bring up the past with Hugh Darvish because I think that would be almost universal, including the LA Dodgers and other teams that he's pitched on that he hasn't performed. Am I right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and here's the thing. When we were criticizing him, I don't think anybody said, well, 3 years from now he won't be good. Nobody knew 3 years from now. We were saying at that time. Everyone said it. He said it. Now, last year, something happened. He started to slow down, take his time, pitch the way he wanted, and he started to pitch better. And then he's carried that over to this year, and he said it again last night. It's not mentally. Physically, he's healthy, and he's pitching slower, and that's what's done it. Look, I don't know. Every player's different, Mike. If that's what works for him, go for it. So, yeah, he's a different guy than he was 2 years ago. Simple as that.
Now, are you and Kipnis tight? Because you guys are basically like suburban brothers, right? You guys are pals. Did you know him in the past?
Yes. Just because we grew up in the same town and went to the same high school. But obviously, I'm like 10 years older than him. So, but I only knew him. My son played in the same.
He looks as old as you. I got to be honest with you.
He does kind of feel. But he played in the same travel league that my son played in. So, he's well known in these parts. He's known as the guy that made it big around here in Northbrook. So, but yeah, I've known him for about 10 years or so since he got in the league, and he's a great guy. And I know he wants to play more, but that's a great combination of him and Horner, don't you think? That's a nice little lefty-righty combo.
I think you know what he'll have a job every year. As long as he wants to play. I don't know if it will be with the Cubs forever, but that's a good. Like we're talking about depth. I mean, Hawk Harrelson was on earlier with us. there's depth that you got to worry about with the White Sox and certain teams. I think the Cubs, have a pretty good, deep roster now. I really do. When you think Aldo wants to get back in there and prove that he can hit, when you're looking at the second base situation that you were just talking about, I got to ask you about Javi. You keep him at 3?
Yeah, I would keep him at 3 because, if you're moving Bryant down, you can't move too many guys down. Like, pick one guy to move out and leave the others. Now, Javi's talking contract stuff. I wonder if that's on his mind. I'm saying, they're talking contract with him. I wonder if that's on his mind because I'm surprised at sort of the rough start he's had. Now, I know he's going to be up and down, Mike, but I thought he'd get off to a better start than this. It is a contract push for him. So if I'm moving Bryant down, I would leave Baez. I don't think you can mix up the top order that much. That's my opinion.
You know what? The worst thing you can do, I don't care what profession you're in, is when you're trying to be the best that you can be, have this money thing hanging over your head. Who initiated that? And did Javi? Javi's agent apparently was cool with it. But the player's the last to know, isn't he, if it's going to be a distraction or not. He doesn't know it's a distraction till it is a distraction. Am I right?
Yeah, I just don't know. I know this, though, Mike. They were talking to Javi about a contract days before the league shut down because of COVID, and he was on the verge of signing. So think about that. Then it shuts down. He can't sign. Maybe the money has changed now. We don't know. The offer has changed because Ricketts is losing money or whatever. So it could be on his mind, but he's not going to admit it, I'm sure. And even if he did admit it, he might say, "Well, look, I'm thinking contract, but that has nothing to do with my play." These guys are going to deny that the money's a part of the game, a part of affecting his game. So I don't know, but I'm just saying that he's a guy that was on the verge of signing a contract, and it didn't happen. So who knows if that's part of it.
All right. Well, we're going to go to my buddy Aldo. He's got chat room questions. We did the same thing with Hawk. I'm basically, Aldo, tearing up a little bit because Jesse bringing up Ricketts losing money, so you take over.
Go ahead. You might have to sell a yacht.
Yeah.
Hey, Jesse, we got tons and tons of White Sox fans in the chat room, and so the obvious question is, what do you think about this upcoming series between the Cubs and the White Sox? And I got to tell you, looking at the pitching matchups, that Friday matchup looks really juicy. I was looking at it, and I lost it momentarily, but I believe.
Okay.
But why don't you tell us what your thoughts are on this upcoming crosstown series?
Well, I'm fascinated by it because it's good pitching against good hitting. Let's face it, the Sox can hit, the Cubs can pitch, at least in the starting rotation. Sox, certainly have Giolito, and there's some pitching there. But in general, that's a hitting team, and the Cubs, for the most part, are a pitching team in the rotation. I think that's going to be great. How does Hendricks and Lester fare up against Eloy now in the regular season? Luis Robert. Aren't you fascinated by that, Mike? I want to see how that plays out. I don't know who's going to win because is it the pitching that wins out? This Sox offense, look what they did last night again. They just keep on hitting home runs. They're amazing.
No, the Cubs aren't the Detroit Tigers. That's all I'm going to tell you. And I understand you got to win who's put in front of you, and that's basically what's going to happen. But I'm happy for both teams right now. I just want Aldo to continue while I dab my tears.
And by the way, that matchup on Friday is Lester versus Dallas Keuchel. That's going to be a classic game. Now, Harp 4803 he's got a series of questions on this Cubs bullpen, and basically it is, do you expect anyone to step up in this bullpen? What do you think about Kimbrel? And do you anticipate perhaps the Cubs pulling a trade for a reliever? So lots to cover there. Tell us what you think about the bullpen.
Definitely pull a trade for a reliever if they can. They're definitely looking, but they're not the only team looking. So that's number one. Number two, I think it's actually getting better. The more experience they're getting. Look what Rowan Wick did last night. He came in and shut down any sort of comeback by the Cardinals. He's back to what he was last year. Jeremy Jeffress, I think, is over his skis a little bit. I don't think he's as good as he's shown, but look, you can't take away what he's done already. So at the very least, he'll be good in the 7th and 8th inning. I still think they have a problem in the 9th. I'm not convinced Kimbrel's going to come back to form. So that is definitely something to watch. But those middle innings, I actually think, are getting better with what they have.
Last question from the chat room. Chubbs82 says, do you agree with him that Yu Darvish is now the best pitcher on the Cubs staff?
He's close. In a big game, I would still take Hendricks. I need to see some big multiple big performances out of you, Darvish. Maybe against a team like the White Sox, for example. If this was Game 7 of the World Series tomorrow, I'd still pitch Kyle Hendricks.
And my question for you, Jesse, is what is it like covering Major League Baseball in the age of the pandemic? Every time I see you on your Skype machine or Zoom, I don't know, on television, and I'm just imagining this has got to be so strange for guys like Jesse and all the other people covering baseball. What's it been like?
Can I answer the question before Jesse does?
Of course, it's your show.
He's getting paid. Go ahead, Jesse. Go ahead now.
Well, I mean, honestly, I'm getting paid, and there's no traffic to the ballpark. There's no traffic, right?
That's nice.
The other night, and I'll do it today for the doubleheader. I'm going to sit in the stands in the upper deck. There's nobody there. I could just sit wherever I want up there. So I mean, that's what's strange. And same thing with the players. No fans makes the whole experience really, really strange.
Hey, let me sneak one more in here from Stacy. She just posted in the chat room. She wants your opinion on how the rookie manager Ross is doing.
Actually, I think he's doing really good. The toughest thing for a manager, first-year manager, is to figure out your bullpen. He has a 60-game season and a brand-new bullpen to figure out. It's like there's no Pedro Strop. There's no guys with experience or track records, and he's doing the best he can there. And look what he did with Ian Happ. Look what he's doing defensively. David Bodie's playing. So I think he's getting the most out of a team that it probably isn't the most talented in the league. The Dodgers probably are. Like, he's getting the most out of players, and that's what a manager should do. I think he's probably right there with Bud Black for manager of the year because the Rockies are up there. But the Rockies will probably fade. I don't think the Cubs are going to fade, and he might win manager of the year in a 60-game season.
I'll tell you what, the thing we always wanted from him was a set lineup. That's all we wanted from Madden. I never got it. I think that affected certain players on the team to say that every player doesn't care where he bats or if he plays or not on a daily basis. It doesn't have to know. I thought that was so misguided with this young team. But Joe stuck with what worked the first year. And now we got a new guy in there that I think is more of a traditional manager. There's no giraffes walking through the clubhouse. People walking down from the scoreboard with world championship uniforms on, and no excuses. I just like the guy. He's doing a lot better than I thought. But nobody's doing better than you. And Jesse, did I hit you right on? There's no traffic and you're getting paid. You can get downtown from your house in what 20 minutes now?
20 minutes, get in and get out of the field. I mean, I'm just trying to find the positives. I'd rather have some energy in the ballpark, but
right.
There's nothing wrong with no traffic. Who can't get around no traffic, right? I love who can't believe in that.
That's right, and I know that it's good that baseball's back. I get today there's 4 NBA games. I'd like to see more Major League Baseball games on today. During the day there was 3 or 4 on yesterday, but I don't care if there's fans in the stands as long as I win the bets that I'm putting down, man. That's all that counts.
I love it.
I don't miss them, to be honest with you, with golf and other things. But I'll tell you what, it's been great. Jesse, thanks, buddy.
Yes.
You're the best. Take care, guys. I'll talk to you soon, Pappy.
All right, pal.
Wow, great interview. Jesse Rogers from ESPN.
We had some fun with Hawk and Jesse. I'll tell you what, 2 positive teams. I mean, That's the only way you could look at it. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're a talk show host of any ilk and you're coming on and you're being more negative than positive about these 2 teams, Aldo,
you're right.
Then you're really just looking for every little thing. Mm-hmm. You're looking, your face, you got a great complexion, but there's a pimple on your ass that nobody can see, but you'll tell everybody about it. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So I just look at that. Now, Aldo and I, folks, we want some more action on the chat board for the Bears because we're here for the duration. I'm here for as long as Aldo wants us because the remarkable I've been making some right calls lately, and I'm really intrigued, Aldo, about your take. I said Trubisky was minus 140, and I had him to win this job. I think the stunning part about the Foles-Trubisky thing, and I want your take on this, is like Bear Media doesn't really tell you how bad Foles was last year. I keep hearing about, of course, the Super Bowl, I don't think Jeff Hostetler wants to talk about other years except the Super Bowl year with the Giants when he subbed. So what's your take on that? Because I think Trubisky, and I knew this would happen with COVID, has I guess you would say he's the favorite right now in the clubhouse.
I agree with Trubisky is definitely going to start the season. And I think that Nick Foles is the best relief pitcher in the NFL. He has a great record of coming off the bench and leading teams. Yes. He just, for some reason, when the pressure is on that he's announced as the starting quarterback of the season and so forth, it just doesn't seem to work. Maybe it's bad luck, but I do believe that it's something a little bit between his ears. And yesterday, Matt Nagy said that the timing between Foles and the receivers is not there. He did not have a chance during these last several months like Mitch Trubisky did, working out with Allen Robinson and Anthony Miller and all those receivers. Trubisky has that advantage, and of course, the last few seasons throwing to those guys, Foles did not, and so the timing is there. Foles, Matt Nagy said, is throwing to a spot, and that's what he should do. That's what he's been trained to do, but still that spot sometimes is not occupied because of the idiosyncrasies receivers have when they're running routes and so forth. So with this very, very limited practice time, I mean, the NFL season starts in 3 weeks, Mike, 3 weeks. Can you believe that?
I can't believe it.
They have to go with Trubisky as they start. To me, it's just a no-brainer.
Yeah, and if he doesn't start, and there's a limited thing that maybe this was preordained and they wanted to make it look like, I mean, I'm reading the papers today and I'm getting a kick out of, this guy did this and that guy did that. You have to have a system, to me, the nonsense I've been reading, I mean, today on Twitter, I did tweet this back to the man. George Pagnakis, I believe his name is, he's saying, look, Foles did good with Philadelphia. He didn't have the receivers in Jacksonville. Well, then why did Minshew have 21 touchdowns and 6 interceptions when he played?
Yeah, right.
So that's nonsense. His last game with 3 interceptions, 97 yards. If Trubisky had that as the last game, and by the way, last year, Trubisky, if you look at his games, they were not bad. That's right. And there was never a game as dreadful as the last game that Foles played, where he was benched for Minshew. Right. So to me, I'm with you on this. And I got to tell everybody this. The scapegoat that the Bears have designed is we're going to save Trubisky when he's got 48 or 49 touchdowns, 28, 29 interceptions, 8,500 yards in 3 years, 63% from the field, and an 85 quarterback rating. You got a guy that's on the come. He's 25 years old. You're right. You brought in a guy that could be Mariano Rivera and save the day, but you can't have him start. He has no history of it.
Exactly. You've got this huge investment into Mitch Trubisky. Right. You've got to try to make this work. And now with these limited reps, they have to make a decision soon and say, all right, we like you, Foles, but you're going to be the backup. We've got to give more reps to Mitchell Trubisky. He's got the experience here with this offense. We've got this investment into him. We have to give Mitchell Trubisky the reps to get him ready for Game 1 against the Detroit Lions.
Now, if you look at it and you look at what they got, I know of this. In all the vast sports media in Chicago, I know this. There are 4 guys, 4 people, and they know who they are. I won't mention names. You folks can figure them out. That wanted Cutler, Grandel, and Foles. Okay? 4 guys. I will bring them up down the line unless they change something because they're swinging and missing.
Yeah.
And you got to quit letting emotion take over. You can be emotional about it as far as if you got something to state, if you got some stats to back you up. But like I said, Eddie Jackson had a down year last year. The offensive line had a down year last year. The running game, Nagy, Pace. The only guys that didn't have a down year were Robinson, Khalil Mack had a down year compared to the year before.
Absolutely.
So there were only, I think I counted 17 guys out of the 11 on offense and the 11 on defense. And 5 of them, I gave the benefit of the doubt to. It wasn't clear cut. Right. So I'm sick. I know the quarterback's supposed to take the brunt, but let's not get stupid here,
right.
you know?
Well, and let's not start with the whole tight end situation. We all know that this Matt Nagy, Andy Reid offense relies on a capable tight end. Well, you got one guy, Trey Burton, who isn't showing up for work. You got a busted draft pick in Adam Shaheen. Now, it appears that they have corrected that problem. The drafting of Cole Kmet, he apparently had a very good practice. And then Jimmy Graham yesterday had an outstanding practice, and he let the defense know it because after every score, he was very adamant with tossing the ball into the stands and a lot of bravado. This is what Matt Nagy said about Jimmy Graham's, what would be the word, his kind of showy attitude during the practice.
Yeah, no, that's energy, and that's the swag that we need on offense. We need that energy, that guy that has that fire, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think what it does is we always we're talking every day about being as competitive as we possibly can in every single period. You see some of the coaches get at it. It's all in love. It's all in fun. Nothing's malicious. But you need to have that. We're going to go out there and we're going to let our personality show. We're going to be us and be who we are. I love that element and that dimension that he brings to this offense. We want more of that.
Mike, you have to agree with me. I love it when the players fight in practice. Let all that energy out. Show that you care. And tell people you're not going to F with me. I mean, that's a good thing that Graham did that, and Deion Bush pushed them after they had a scuffle after Graham scored one of his touchdowns yesterday. I think that's good for the team. What do you think?
Well, I think so does Nagy. Because Nagy basically said, we'll talk to him. What do you talk to him about? You know, I mean, come on, all right? Just like I'm watching yesterday, the NBA game. Uh-huh. Porzingis makes a clean block, okay? Mm-hmm. And the ref calls a foul, and it was clean. They showed it, and Van Gundy and Jackson even said, that's clean. So Porzingis just uses his hand to wave off the ref. In a playoff game, he got a technical. Mm-hmm. Because of that, they forget that people used to get planted in the stands, okay? Right. I mean, they forget that they used to just clobber people and get in the refs' faces and wouldn't get techs. Now you're giving a tech for waving off a ref on a bad call after you made an emotional play. The same thing goes here. These two guys fight. It's spontaneous. They should be able to work it out with themselves. You show some toughness, and the coach is going to talk to you. What are you going to talk to him about? Don't do it again? Mm-hmm. Well, don't hit me under the chin again. Right. Or don't cheap shot me again. I mean, they're out there, and I just think I don't want wholesale fighting, but that's a typical skirmish that ends quickly that doesn't even need to be talked about, I don't think.
I agree.
In the media and have some fun.
Yeah, I agree. And by the way, that Porzingis ejection, I really do believe that cost the Mavericks that game because
that's horrible.
It was awful.
And he got another one. Because it was. I mean, it's the two technicals were weak.
Yes, he came to the.
So weak. It's playoff basketball, man. Right. Are you out of your mind? You think you're playing the 5th game of the season?
Right, exactly. He's coming to the defense of Doncic, and all he does is he shoves the guy. It's not like he took a punch at him. You know,
no.
This was so innocuous. These referees, I don't know. Maybe we know that some of the referees in the past have bet on games. Maybe the money was against the Dallas. I don't know.
Believe me, if you're a bettor, you think and you're losing, you think the players are involved. You know? Why didn't you just pass the ball to the other guy?
That's right.
Oh, these are questions I ask myself daily. If I'm losing, if I'm winning, these guys are clean. They know their job.
I love these referees and officials.
Oh, these refs are the best I've ever seen. You know, that's the beauty of it. I mean, I just think that sports. I'm watching sports. I don't care how can you watch this sport? They're this way. How can you watch? Hey, man, I'm a handicapper. I could care less.
Yeah.
You know what I want in the back of one of the jerseys of the NBA? Mm-hmm. Let's win this for Mike. Just put that on one time. You can look, if you want to put BLM on, if you want to put equality on, if you want to put justice on, if you want to put education on the back, if you do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Put one time, win one for Mike.
I love it.
Because let me tell you something. BLM?
Yeah.
They stole that from me. You know that, don't you?
Yeah, that's right. What was it again?
Betters lives matter.
That's right.
And they just ran with it. They took it without even calling.
You've been using that for years. I can't believe they didn't get called.
Betters lives matter. Put something on the back. Mike's getting 6. Let's try to get it.
That's great stuff. Now,
right next to the guy standing with the social justice jersey on. How about this? Mike needs a win.
That's right. Justice for Mike. I love it.
Because sports, I love sports. I don't give a rat's Rudy Tooty. Yeah. My favorite one is on the back of their jerseys, what's my name? And on the bottom, there's his name. That's the best. Donovan Mitchell. What's my name on the top? And it says Mitchell at the bottom.
That's a good one. I didn't notice that one.
Yeah.
That is good. All right, back to the Bears. I want to get your final.
Yeah, we went off the rails, which was good. Sometimes a good train accident wakes people up.
Well, that's what people in the chat room are saying. Stacy's saying Mike is on fire. Q from Cincy says, win one for Mike. Harp says, justice for Mike. So lots of people love it.
You know what I want on the back? Bears barroom rules.
There you go.
On the back of Giannis's jersey.
Oh my gosh, what's going on with Giannis? I mean, I guess we got to talk more NBA because it's
do it all day. I'm here.
Yeah, we
act like we got somewhere to go. The only thing I don't have on my house is bars on the window.
Not yet, right?
I always wondered what it would be like. To be house arrest with my wife and the food we got. Although there's a pepperoni shortage, which means this world's going to hell in a handbasket. But that's beside the point. But yeah, the NBA playoffs have been great. The Hawks crap the bed. I'm not a Jeremy Colleton fan. Sorry. Yeah. I could tell if a guy inspires people behind the bench. He looks like one of the trainers with a suit. That's all.
Yeah, he does, and you're absolutely right. He fails to inspire the players. I saw some video of him talking to the players in the locker room, and it was like, Bueller, that from that movie. He was just monotone, soft-spoken, and I like a really good communicator to be your head coach or your manager and so forth. And perhaps he's brilliant, and perhaps he's good at creating things that aren't there. But I'm not seeing the results I want to see. He's young. I'm willing to give him another season. The guy that I have the biggest problem with is Bowman. I think he's gotten by on the laurels of his father, Scotty Bowman, and I feel like he inherited players that Dale Talon drafted. Yes. Dale Talon drafted the core of that team.
He should have gotten GM of the year for the Hawks.
Yeah,
and he wasn't even with them.
Exactly.
When they won the first Stanley Cup, I mean, come on. I was the first guy in this town in Chicago to interview. I'll never forget it. They walked in, Kane and Taves. The Hawks brought in their guys to do radio, hits around the city. And they brought them in person. And McDonough knew how big we were.
Right.
And he brought them in. And I'll never forget it. And I wish I had a picture phone back then and all that other nonsense. But I knew right then that was the deal. Now, can Colleton really tell 3-time Stanley Cup superstars
That's right.
how to play the game?
Yeah.
I mean, I just think it's the substitute kindergarten teacher that had to take over the senior class at Set High School one day.
That's right. He does look younger than Patrick Gannon.
Right. I mean, he's the guy that passes out Crayolas or tells the kids to take a nap. The only problem is they're seniors in high school. You have to. You're not coaching little kids.
That's
You're
right.
not teaching little kids. You're not with Rockford. And players know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
The players know that. I don't think they've ever been. If you ask Taves and Kane and Crawford their impressions of him after playing for Joe Quenneville,
Exactly.
Forget about it.
Well, I got to tell you, we saw the dramatic changes at the Chicago Bulls. They're looking for a new head coach. I got to believe that the management of the Chicago Blackhawks has to be thinking, is it time now that McDonough's gone, is it time now to revamp everything and start over? I mean, they've got some good young talent, and maybe it's time to trade some of these older assets, trade a Kane, trade a Tays. You know, I think Corey Crawford is a free agent, so you're going to need a goaltender. This team needs some serious rehab. Now, let's talk Bulls a little bit. What do you think about the firing of Jim Boylan?
Well, it took forever. And Reinsdorf, Jerry cried about losing money. Another guy like Ricketts says we were weeping for Ricketts.
Right.
Another billionaire worth $3 billion was crying how he's being financially hit, and we may keep Boylan. Those were all smoke screens, folks. Believe me when I tell you this. They work under the same structure as the Chicago White Sox do. You have your Reinsdorf through William Sherrod. You have your Reinsdorf, your Paxson, and now this guy. I don't know who they're going to get. Look, I heard Wes Unseld Jr.
Yeah, I've heard that name too.
Okay? I would rather, I don't know. I know this. Wes Unseld Sr. was a no-nonsense guy. He was a 6'8" center that threw people around like they were rag dolls. If he's like that, that's fine. But can coaches, look, you know what makes me sick, Elds? I'm watching Miami last night. And the Bulls developed Jimmy Butler. And because they got rid of Thibodeau, and because they have a structure, and they brought in Hoiberg, and Butler sealed his fate when he said, our head coach needs to get tougher. That was the end of the line for Jimmy Butler. It makes me ill to see players that we develop performing for other teams because of front office political stances. It really does.
I'm with you. It's heartbreaking to see that. And I would hate to see the Blackhawks, trade some of their older guys, but maybe you just have to do that. Now, back to the Bulls.
They should trade the defenseman. Was it Brown?
Keith Duncan.
Duncan Keith.
I'm sorry.
Keith was on for 3 goals for their goals. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, every time the Knights scored a goal, there was Keith right in front of the net, slamming his stick. But back to the Bulls, do you think that there's enough young talent here where you can bring in a veteran, savvy coach who can all of a sudden add 10 wins with the talent that's already here with Chicago Bulls?
No. Absolutely not. They don't have a team. I'm hearing Wendell Carter's going to be the big shot this year. I've been hearing all this nonsense forever. They lucked into Derrick Rose. They had a small window. It didn't work out. And now I don't see Zach LaVine is not committed to the defensive end. I mean, I'm watching these teams in the NBA, and it's no doubt to me, I love the Toronto Raptor coach, Nick Nurse. They lose Kawhi Leonard, and yet they're as good because of one reason. Look at Toronto, folks, play the defensive end of the court. And then look at somebody like Utah, you know what I mean? Or Dallas, who's ranked 18th in defense. They're good because of their offensive play, but they're not going anywhere because they don't play defense. And that's the way I think the Bulls are. The Bulls were built. People are going to find this hard to believe. The Bulls were built on defense during the Jordan years.
Yep, exactly.
You had a 9-time Defensive Player of the Year. Then you had Scottie Pippen. Then you had Dennis Rodman. You won't find as a crew, as a trio, 3 better defenders. Yet the Bulls are known for Michael Jordan and dunking.
Right.
But if you really look into it, they were committed on the defensive side of the ball.
Johnny Bach was their defensive guru, and he had that Doberman. Yep. They called it the Doberman defense, and because those guys with long arms, Scottie Pippen, Ron Harper, Michael Jordan, they were getting their hands on balls. They were creating turnovers, scoring off of those turnovers. That was huge. I'm with you. You should start there. What's your opinion on this new Bears president GM, Arturas Karnisovas?
The Bulls GM is a guy that they basically, if you think for 1 minute that I think he fired Boylan on his own. It's crazy. That's just the way I feel.
Really?
I think it's always a group decision there because you would see many times. I mean, Reinsdorf wouldn't even know what's going on, but then somebody would go upstairs and tell him. Reinsdorf knows everything that's going on. Paxson knows everything that's going on. There was no way they were going to bring him back. Now let's see who they hire. I don't think they're good enough to have a veteran coach like he asked earlier. I think you go with the young guy, but somebody with presence. Don't go with Hoiberg. You know, they'll probably bring it. I heard Tyronn Lue the other day.
Yeah.
I almost fell backwards.
Kendall Gill on Sharpshooters here on the network suggested Ty Lue. Yeah.
Well, you know why? Because everything that's happened to Tyronn Lue has LeBron tied to it. Everything.
Yeah.
Except his last year when he went 0-6. Then he was gone.
Yeah.
Because LeBron left.
Right.
So, I'm sorry. I love Kendall. I mean, he was big with he used to come on with us on the Monsters. I love Kendall, but I disagree with him on Tyronn Lue. I really, really do. Because he's tied everywhere with, and that's nothing against him. Phil Jackson had Jordan, Riley, but we know they could coach. Especially Riley, because he coached at 2 or 3 stops, you know?
Right. By the way, Kendall Gill shares a great story on Sharpshooters where he was out with a couple of Hollywood buddies, and they meet up with Halle Berry, and they are encouraging Kendall to ask Halle on a date. And this was when she was filming her first breakout film, Boomerang, with Eddie Murphy, and they were like,
I love that movie.
And she was just absolutely stunning then, as she is and will always be. And so they're encouraging him, and he says in the podcast, that was the first time and only time in my life I chickened out at something, and you regretted it. I'm like, I would regret that one too.
Let me tell you something. Halle Berry in that movie plays the straight girl,
right?
Plays Eddie Murphy's friend, but not Eddie Murphy wants Robin Givens.
Right.
The great John Witherspoon, to me, stole the movie. The man that played the father of Greer. And he bang, bang, bang. I mean, just the dinner scene alone is worth watching. But I'm sorry for Kendall, I mean, quite frankly, somebody should have bought him a shot and worked some nerve up into him.
That's right.
That's all.
Mike, I had a blast today. Thank you.
I did too.
I really needed this on this hump day. I got a lot of work ahead of me the rest of the day, and you have started it off in just such a great...
Are you in the Bears Barroom mine with the pick and axe?
That's right. Shoveling a lot of crap.
You got the miner's helmet on because you put up all these great shows that you've been putting on?
Yes.
You got the Sharpshooters. Let's go over them real quick.
Sure.
I'll go over them, okay? Because I know what's going on here. Because I pay attention. I tweet out anybody, anything that has anything to do with Bear Barroom, I don't miss because I love Bears Barroom.
You are great
but
at
you got the Sharpshooters. You got Grobstein and Schuster.
Yeah, they're
got Coach Gabriel.
Yes, Gabriel and Schuster Talk Bears got the Grobstein-Schuster zone, and they're showing up here in an hour or so to tape their next episode. We've got some really cool... Did you ever hear the Jack Brickhouse rant? He's reading a commercial and he just loses it. He gets really angry and just throws F-bomb after F-bomb. We're going to play that on the Grobstein-Schuster zone. And then also we've got the second episode of our new show called Stuff Your Mom Threw Out. It's a sports memorabilia show, and Scott Beatty is just absolutely tremendous. He spends an hour busting David Schuster's balls and talking about autographed baseballs too. So that's a really good show. And of course, we've got a lot of our old favorites. Like I have a streamed Fantasy Football Goon had an episode yesterday.
Right, bud.
That's a lot of cool stuff on the network. And of course, the Mike North Advantage.
You're the best, Aldo. I love you, my friend.
I love you too. We'll talk to you later, brother.
All right, bud. Bye-bye.